Welcome back. This winter of 2025 has been relentless, record-breaking cold, endless snow, and a polar vortex that plunged deep into the US, freezing life as we know it. Today we're counting down the 10 states hit hardest by this historic winter, using official meteorological data, temperature drops, snowfall records, and real-world impacts. Grab a warm drink, get comfortable, and let's dive into the states that face the full force of the 2025 polar vortex. Number 10 is New York, a state famous for its resilience and bustling energy. But this winter, even the Empire State was no match for the relentless cold. For many, the season started like any other, but soon, even seasoned residents were caught off guard by the sheer intensity of the storms. Streets that usually buzzed with life became nearly impassable, as snowdrifts piled higher than most had ever seen. Upstate, relentless lake-effect snow buried cities like Buffalo and Watertown under several feet of snow, closing highways, stranding vehicles, and isolating entire communities for days on end. Emergency crews worked around the clock, but the snow just kept coming, making it nearly impossible to keep up. Downstate, New York City faced record cold highs, frozen pipes bursting in apartment buildings, and a transit system in chaos as subways and rails froze solid. Commuters found themselves stranded, with trains delayed or canceled, and the city's famous hustle slowed to a crawl. Homeless shelters overflowed as people sought refuge from the biting cold, and the city's daily rhythm ground to a halt. Businesses shuttered, schools closed, and even the most dedicated New Yorkers were forced indoors by the dangerous conditions. From the snow-blanketed Adirondacks to the wind-whipped roads of Long Island, the combination of early Arctic blasts, record-breaking snowfall, and weeks of sustained cold disrupted millions of lives. Power outages left families in the dark, and emergency services were stretched to their limits. The National Guard was called in to help dig out neighborhoods and rescue stranded motorists. Even a state used to winter was brought to its knees, as residents struggled to keep up with the relentless onslaught of snow and ice. In a place where winter is a way of life, this season was anything but ordinary. That's why New York lands at number 10 on our list of states hardest hit by winter's fury. At number 9, Colorado's winter was more than just ski season, it was survival. This year, the state faced a relentless deep freeze that tested the limits of even the most seasoned Coloradans. The cold was biting, the snow unyielding, and the wind cut through layers of clothing like a knife. For weeks, the city streets and mountain towns alike were transformed into icy landscapes, where every step outside felt like a challenge. Denver endured its coldest January in over a decade, with sub-zero temperatures stretching across the state. Residents woke up to frozen pipes, cars that wouldn't start, and a constant battle to keep homes warm. The cold snap didn't just linger for a day or two, it held Colorado in its grip for weeks, making daily routines a struggle and forcing people to adapt to the harshest conditions in years. Avalanche risks soared as heavy snow and wind created unstable mountain conditions, closing highways and endangering backcountry travelers. The mountains, usually a playground for winter sports, became treacherous. Avalanche control teams worked around the clock, setting off controlled explosions to prevent disaster, but the threat was constant. Highways were shut down, isolating communities and making travel risky for anyone venturing into the high country. Ski resorts saw record snow, but keeping roads and infrastructure open was a monumental challenge. Snowplows and heavy machinery worked non-stop to clear highways and resort entrances, but the snow just kept coming. Visitors and locals alike faced long delays, and even the most popular ski destinations struggled to keep up with the relentless accumulation. For many, the journey to the slopes was as daunting as the runs themselves. The deep freeze strained the power grid and daily life, from the plains to the peaks. Power lines sagged under the weight of ice, and outages left neighborhoods in the dark and cold. People spent hours scraping thick ice from windshields, while rural families found themselves snowbound, cut off from supplies and emergency services. The cold was a constant presence, shaping every decision and every day. Colorado's combination of urban cold, mountain danger, and relentless snow earns it the 9th spot. The state's unique geography meant that no one was spared, from city dwellers navigating icy sidewalks to mountain residents facing avalanche threats. The relentless snowfall blurred the line between city and wilderness, creating a shared struggle that united Coloradans across the state. Even winter lovers found it too much. The sheer intensity of the cold and snow left many longing for spring, as the deep freeze pushed everyone to their limits and reminded Colorado that winter here is never to be underestimated. Number 8 is Ohio, where a brutal mix of snow, sleet, and freezing rain led to widespread chaos. The Buckeye state, known for its rolling farmlands and bustling cities, was suddenly transformed into a frozen landscape. As the storm swept in, residents watched in disbelief as their familiar neighborhoods disappeared beneath a thick, icy blanket. Trees bent under the weight of the ice, their branches snapping and crashing onto power lines and roads. The relentless storm didn't just bring inconvenience. It brought a sense of isolation and uncertainty to millions across the state. January's deep freeze, paired with heavy ice, caused massive blackouts as power lines snapped and equipment failed. Utility crews worked around the clock, braving dangerous conditions to restore electricity, but the sheer scale of the damage meant that many communities were left in the dark for days. For some, the blackout meant no heat, no lights, and no way to communicate with loved ones. Emergency shelters quickly filled up, and neighbors banded together, sharing resources and offering support to those most in need. Ice jams on rivers triggered flooding, while roads became skating rinks, shutting down travel and commerce. Emergency responders struggled to reach those in need, as even the most well-equipped vehicles found themselves sliding helplessly on the glassy roads. Local businesses were forced to close, and grocery store shelves emptied quickly as supply trucks were unable to make their deliveries. The economic impact was immediate and severe, with small towns and big cities alike feeling the strain. The state was encased in ice for weeks, with major highways closed and supply chains disrupted. Long lines of trucks sat stranded on the interstate, waiting for conditions to improve. For many businesses, the delays meant lost revenue and uncertainty about when normal operations could resume. The transportation gridlock rippled across the region, affecting everything from food deliveries to emergency medical supplies. For many, the only advice was to stay home and wait it out. Families huddled together for warmth, using blankets and candles to get through the long, cold nights. Children played board games by flashlight, while parents anxiously listened to weather updates on battery-powered radios. The sense of community grew stronger as neighbors checked in on each other and shared what little they had. Ohio's relentless battle with ice, blackouts, and transportation paralysis secures its place on our list. The storm tested the resilience of its people, who faced each new challenge with determination and grit. From the first flakes to the final thaw, Ohioans proved that even in the darkest, coldest moments, their spirit could not be broken. The winter's impact was felt in every corner, from rural farms to bustling cities. As the state slowly emerged from the deep freeze, stories of perseverance and neighborly kindness became a testament to Ohio's enduring strength. At number 7, Montana faced a punishing, weeks-long deep freeze. Mountain towns saw temperatures plunge to -60, while cities like Bozeman and Billings endured -30 and 40. Ranchers struggled to keep cattle alive, suffering heavy losses despite nonstop efforts. The cold lingered into spring, delaying planting and deepening the economic toll. Montana's resilience was tested like never before, with agriculture and daily life pushed to the brink. Record lows, devastated ranches, and a winter that wouldn't quit put Montana at number 7. It was a season that left scars across the state. Number 6 is Iowa, where life-threatening wind chills and a crippling February ice storm brought the state to a standstill. Schools closed for weeks, pipes burst, and farmers fought to keep livestock alive in -40 to -50 wind chills. The ice storm paralyzed highways and left rural areas without power for days. Deep frost threatened the upcoming planting season, casting a shadow over Iowa's agricultural future. The state's transportation and economy froze, along with the soil. Iowa's battle with cold, ice, and agricultural uncertainty lands it at number 6. The Heartland was truly frozen. At number 5, Illinois, and especially Chicago, was overwhelmed. The Polar Vortex erased the city's usual urban heat, plunging the region into a deep, uniform freeze. Repeated ice storms crippled transit, with L trains and sidewalks coated in ice, halting millions of commutes. O'Hare Airport faced massive delays, and the cold strained the state's energy grid. Beyond Chicago, rural areas and farms suffered too. Illinois earns its spot for record cold, paralyzed infrastructure, and the sheer scale of disruption. Even a city built for winter was brought to a standstill. Number 4 is Michigan, where the Great Lakes fueled relentless, record-shattering snow. The Upper Peninsula and Western Lower Peninsula were buried under hundreds of inches, straining snow removal and threatening buildings. Ice storms caused widespread week-long power outages, forcing residents into warming centers. Detroit saw a rare -30 degrees, compounding the crisis. The combination of historic snow, devastating ice, and dangerous cold made daily life a struggle. Michigan's ordeal was severe and multifaceted, landing it high on our list. The lakes that define the state became engines of misery. At number 3, Wisconsin endured a relentless stretch of sub-zero highs and heavy lake-effect snow. Cities like Milwaukee and Green Bay were buried, while snowplow crews worked non-stop. The state's dairy industry was hit hardest. Frozen equipment, stressed cows, and lost herds led to staggering economic losses. Milk production plummeted, and family farms faced crisis after crisis. Wisconsin's identity and economy were shaken to the core. For record cold, endless snow, and a battered dairy industry, Wisconsin takes the 3rd spot. The winter struck at the heart of the state. Runner-up is North Dakota, ground zero for the Arctic blast. Wind chills neared -60, paralyzing the state and crippling its vital oil industry as equipment froze and production stalled. The cold lingered for months, delaying spring and planting, and making daily life hazardous. Residents stayed indoors for weeks, and the economy suffered ripple effects. North Dakota's relentless Siberian-level winter tested every limit. For extreme cold, oil field shutdowns, and a winter that wouldn't end. It's our number 2. The state redefined what it means to be tough. And at number 1, Minnesota, the epicenter of winter's wrath. A 2-week stretch of sub-zero highs gripped the Twin Cities, straining infrastructure and shutting down public life. Wind chills in the -50s and 60s made even brief exposure dangerous. Then, a record-breaking snowstorm dumped over 2 feet on Minneapolis and St. Paul, paralyzing the region. Cleanup took weeks, and the state's resilience was pushed to the limit. Minnesota faced the worst of the cold, the snow, and the wind. The land of 10,000 lakes became the land of 10,000 frozen challenges. This was a winter for the history books. That's our look at the 10 states hardest hit by the 2025 Polar Vortex. This winter proved that even in a modern world, nature still calls the shots. Share your stories in the comments. How did you weather the storm? Stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you in the next video.